Hey everybody, Mike Allen here. Wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about triggers in the world of recovery. I have a chapter in my first book, Not Another Recovery Success Story, or is it, titled Triggers? Question mark. And I attempt to make a case that in some cases they might not even exist. Perhaps not so much that they don't exist, because I know from experience that they do, but more about how addicts and alcoholics can sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, use that as an excuse to not turn things around. I can remember countless occasions where I would have long stretches of sobriety and just, get to a point where it was all too much, and I would start kind of collecting like these mental hardships, dealing with temptation, dealing with vast amounts of triggers, whatnot, and just kind of use that as sort of a justification for why I wound up in a liquor store again. And again, I'm not downplaying how powerful triggering events can be, or triggers in general. But again, I can look back on my very long history of alcohol abuse and recall many times where, even in my darkest moments, I knew that I was just using those mental hardships as an excuse to not turn things around. It's just too hard. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give it up. And just continue telling myself that to excuse my behavior, which in hindsight is just ridiculous and unacceptable to me. But again, anyone who's going through that, I can completely sympathize with. It's fun. I was thinking of a situation today at work where it was just like, okay, say heaven, God forbid, you got intoxicated and you decided to drive drunk, and again, God forbid, you ended up killing somebody, getting in an accident and killing someone. Imagine being in court, listening to the victim impact statement of the loved ones of the person whose life you had taken, and offering up as an excuse for your actions, well, you got to understand, I was just so triggered. You know as well as I do that that wouldn't fly. No one would care, rightfully so. So, if in a situation as extreme as that, if it wouldn't fly in a situation like that, why should it fly anywhere? Why should it fly just in your own mind, in your own personal life, even if it doesn't get taken to that extreme of doing the unthinkable, of driving in a blackout and ending up in a car accident where you take somebody's life? If saying that your triggers are responsible for your actions, if that's just your go-to every time that you slip up, you're never going to get sober. I mean, it's just triggers are everywhere. Um, like I wrote about in my book, just kind of being alive is the trigger. Um, are there more extreme, examples? Of course, like I wouldn't recommend going to a bar, when you're like a week sober. That's kind of a obvious, more in your face sort of trigger. But I've been sober almost 4 years now, and there are a lot of things in day to day life now that I just kind of consider life. Whereas when I was earlier on in sobriety, I might have considered them triggers. Um, I think it's just a matter of um, looking at your situation honestly and having the willingness to say, okay, I might be triggered, but does that mean I have to give in to that temptation? And furthermore, even if you are being triggered or tempted or whatever, is that justification for you continuing your own self destruction? And I would really like to believe that most people could say to themselves, no, it's not. And I get it. Again, I've been there. It's a hell of a lot easier said than done, especially in the very early stages. But it was helpful to me to kind of identify that as something that I was doing. I was using those triggers and the hardships produced by them as an excuse. 110%. That's what I was doing. Not all the time, but I'd say more often than not, that was what was going on with me. And I know everyone's different. Some of you might be able to relate to this, some of you might not. But I think it could be helpful to anyone who's struggling with addiction to ask themselves that, if that might be what's going on with them. Again, that's something I discuss in my first book, Not Another Recovery Success Story. You can listen to the audiobook of that for free on Bandcamp and on my website. I'll include those links in the description. I encourage anyone who might be struggling with these sorts of issues to listen to those audiobook, preferably for free. If it's something that you think that could help you, then nothing can make me happier. If you'd like to support me, you can buy the paperback on Amazon. I'll include that link as well. But yeah, thanks very much for listening. Take care.